Okay, was that cough part of the original script, or did the voice actor ad-lib that? If it was the latter, I would highly approve, because ad-libs have provided us with some of the best scenes in Toy recently. That is going to become a lot more relevant later. This week, we opened on the Hanadera family arriving at a big open field early in the morning. They were there for a hot air balloon competition. Oh my god, would you look at that? This show got a sponsorship from Tonda. That's amazing! Oh, and there were also some references from last season that don't look all that aerodynamic. Granted, these two were the real protagonists of that show, but still, Tonda! Anyway, Mr. Hanadera had taken his family there because he knew one of the competing teams, having been a member of an older incarnation of it back during his college days. He especially praised the team captain Kazu for his passion. Okay, do we need some kind of Pee-wee's Playhouse setup where every time someone says the word of the day, everyone screams? Meanwhile, in the Byogen Kingdom, Gwaiwaru was doing some basic chemistry, combining some clear water with some black stuff. Yeah, but if your stuff is a little too thick, it's not going to spread evenly, and you're not going to end up with a nice even coating on your little monster like this. I will say, it was a little clever to have the scene darken as Gwaru said that line. Regardless, Daruzen was clearly not impressed by his cohort's kindergarten-level science and took off, though not before questioning where they all came from, to which Shindoinen had no answer. Back at the competition, we got a legitimately interesting explanation about the science behind hot air balloons, as well as why competitions tend to take place early in the morning. Again, I don't necessarily mind when we get stuff like this that isn't all that important to the show's overarching plot, just as long as it's interesting stuff that the writers have clearly done their research for. Still, much like previous outings, we also had to see Asumi learning about her word of the day in the process.
This is all following a formula!
Thankfully, Hinata arrived to provide everyone with some small pancakes, and admittedly a funny bit from Asumi. Thus, with the spirit of the pancake by their side, Asumi and Latte were going to cheer this team on with all their might. The competition started, and again, I gotta give credit to the anime staff for clearly doing their research, as we got to see all the little touches they provided in showing the process of getting a balloon to float. There was no dialogue, but the animation gave us a clear idea of what they were doing, so nice job there, guys. The competition itself wasn't a race, which makes sense considering what they were riding in, but rather, the competitors had to control their balloons enough to throw a beanbag as accurately on a sponsored target as possible. Thus, in a competition like this, the luck of the draw, or the win, could decide it all. In the case of Kazu's team, they drew the short straw. And again, in a nice bit of visual storytelling, we could actually see the frustration written all over Kazu's face, so much so that even Asumi could pick up on it. Thus, she later confronted him about this, and why he tried to hide it from Mr. Hanadera. On a side note, I just love Latte's face here that just screams, "Lowly peasant," as Kazu tried to make some lame excuses. Hearing all of this, Asumi admitted that she and Latte felt some vexing feelings that she had never experienced over the course of all of her episodes so far. I like this because it does show that the worst kinds of frustrations aren't the ones that are just internal, but rather the ones that are shared by a group. This was appropriately explained by Chiyu, who had experienced the feeling many times before with all of her failed high jumps. It's especially appropriate here because I think everyone in this group is starting to get a little frustrated with all the Asumi episodes. Later, the main navigator of Kazu's team was forced to withdraw due to illness, hopefully not that illness, and thus they were short someone who could read wind patterns. Luckily for them, there was a girl nearby who was supernaturally connected with the wind. But yeah, even though she clearly didn't know some of the finer mechanics of working on a team like this, Asumi was able to provide accurate win predictions that did almost win them the competition until Muscles McGee here arrived. Curses, should've figured that company was the source of all evil in the world! Either that or Disney. Of course, the Precure engaged this week's monster, sponsored by a car company, and thankfully they did use the new team transformation sequence from a couple weeks ago. Guairar then used his half-assed thesis from earlier and loaded up his monster with triple the mega parts, naturally making it stronger than usual, and not a bad fight this week. I mean, obviously more power meant nothing to Little Miss OP here, but I will at least praise them a little for tying the monster's defeat with what they learned about hot air balloons, making this at least a thematically appropriate defeat. And of course, since they were dealing with a new elemental type, Asumi was given her second elemental bottle for air, which feels even more redundant than having a water and rain bottle. Whatever, they now had almost a full shelf of bottles with only one missing. But come on, we just got another Asumi-centric episode. Can't we just get like some kind of big development before this episode ends? Oh, well, that kind of works. Alright, I am getting a little ahead of myself, as we also did get a legitimately good scene of Kazu now having fortified his resolve, and no longer trying to hide his disappointment through an insincere laugh. Still, the real highlight of this episode came as Nodoka, unwisely, decided to check up on a crow cawing in distress by herself. Sure enough, Daisen was trying to make another Noise Jr., but after his sworn enemy arrived, he decided to change up his plans. Okay, so I'm a little conflicted here. Should I go with a Madoka reference, or should I use the rest of that Exade clip? Then again, both are spoilers, so I'll hold back for now. With that, the episode ended on a very gripping note as Raplin called out to her downed partner. But yeah, other than that legitimately good cliffhanger, this was yet another OP Asumi-centric episode. Granted, it did at least serve a purpose by giving us our 6th to last elemental bottle, and the list of the day certainly wasn't bad. But as I said, these sorts of episodes have become extremely formulaic, so I'm just glad that they're finally ending. Yes, I know I said that before, but I'm pretty sure this time, okay? I will say, this show has at least provided us with some good visual storytelling to at least make this arc not feel like a toll drag. I mean, it might just be me, but I just love all the little details they provide for this hot air balloon competition. From the overt like those tutorials, to the little details like Kazu's hand signals. Stuff like that is genuinely fascinating to me, and I do praise the staff for showing their own passion for making sure they represent everything right. Though on that note, yes, I am tired of Asumi's Word of the Day episodes with her learning more about the human's emotions. Yes, I am glad that her humanization hasn't been rushed at all, but man has this grown tiresome. Once again, Asumi pretty much sold the fight, though at least she got something plot relevant out of it. Still, thankfully, the main takeaway from this episode was actually quite good. Not only is this significant from a story standpoint, but also from a meta standpoint, as this pretty much confirms they're not backing down from talking about critical ailments in spite of what's going on in the world right now. There is a lot of potential here, so let's see if they can take it to the skies. If you haven't seen it yet, I actually managed to get a Higurashi video out on the 1st of October like I promised. It's a ranking video for the original 8 story arcs of the series, so I recommend watching it after you've read the original sound novel or have seen either the 2006 or 2020 anime. Speaking of which, yes, I have seen the first episode of the 2020 remake, so here are just my quick first impressions. I thought it was overall a very solid first episode with everything moving at a very smooth and coherent pace. I'm not completely sold on the new character designs by the guy who did the Monogatari series, and the colors are a tad bit too bright for my taste, but that could easily change as soon as we get to the most important scenes later. I do strongly disapprove of them skipping the first card game and resulting punishment game for Keiichi. Yeah, I get that they might want to distinguish themselves from the original anime, but that scene and how it ended also acted as a very important plot point for the ending to this arc and a later one. And speaking of endings, that stinger was more than a little awkward and unfortunately kinda spoils a great reveal later. Those two issues together make this reboot not entirely new user friendly. Again, I still really liked it, and am looking forward to watching it weekly. Also, the little alterations they made to Keiichi's casual wear made him look like Bachitamota, appropriately enough. I'm currently working on another Higurashi video, so look forward to that sometime later this month. And until then though, for now my friends, and oh boy, when Mr. God gets started, it's hard to stop him. I'll deal with this.